Hey guys, it's Celine. So today I thought I might finally get around to showing you. I'm still trying to fiddle with my setup here so that I can actually show you everything at the same time. I've got one of those brace things on the edge of my table here, and it doesn't really do exactly what I want it to do as yet. So I have to figure this out still. Bear with me, okay, as I just sit here and hold my phone as I did before. This is, as you may know, a setup for a Grand Tableau, for Lenormand cards. As an example, I have these cards here, which are rather pretty. Can you just sink to a particular position and hold? Yes, okay. It'll have to do like this. So this is the enchanted Lenormand, okay? The clover, the lady, the book, the heart, the rider, the bouquet, all those very well-known cards, 36 of them. The first thing that I learned which attracted me to Lenormand cards as a principle or as a way of working, as opposed to tarot, when I got these, was that you could use your whole entire deck in one go, in what is known as a Grand Tableau, like this thing here, which is a cloth that I made, where I just wrote on. I basically made the like seams in a contrasting color with thread on the sewing machine, and then wrote in each the house name. So those are the names of the cards: the rider and the clover and the sailing boat, the house, the tree, etc. These are the French names, in their order, so to speak. So it is like a map of the setup of the whole of the 36 cards, where you have 8 cards in each row and then going down like that, and actually 4 at the bottom. So that is the basic principle for Lenormand, to do a spread, sort of a situation layout with your cards, where you can use your whole entire deck in one go. I always felt that that was very interesting and very satisfying to do, and a nice way to work with these cards and to get a different perspective from where you do tarot, for example, or a combination of decks, as I've been doing quite a bit recently myself, where you have spread questions or a combination of different types of spread questions and positions and things like that, where you always draw cards and then put them in the positions, and then you get answers to your questions. This is a different approach, where you have your whole deck on the table. So this is a fairly familiar way of working. Grand Tableau with the Lenormand is a traditional way of using that deck. And I will pull this back out again so you can see the whole thing. So the only problem with this particular kind of a, thing, and then the size, obviously, of these cards, which are not big. These are like poker size cards, I think. They're actually rather small, and I have small hands, okay? But they're too big to fit in this whole thing here. So as I am somebody who really enjoys printing out little card, images, screenshots, or what have you from the internet of decks of cards, and then gluing those onto cardboard using wallpaper glue and so on and so forth. I keep myself busy like that, or have kept myself busy like that, on and off. Over the years, I've also made my own little miniature tarot decks like that. I was not that daunted as such. I immediately felt like I should have a tiny version of the Lenormand deck cards, and use that on this particular cloth like that. And I haven't brought that particular deck, also because it is a very personalized, very special kind of a version that has screenshot photographs that I took from a YouTube video of somebody whose deck is out of print. And I don't think I've actually recently seen one on somebody's channel who got gifted a copy of one of their decks, and so she showed a few cards, but it's not a deck you see very often, and I thought it would only be more confusing, you know, visually, what with all my junk on the table and the cloths and the positions and all the rest of it. Also because what I really want to talk about is how, okay, you know, small cards in these positions, and then what I can do is I can see where my lady is at, where my gentleman is at, what their positions are, because they have houses. You know, this is why I wanted to show you this cloth, to be able to see, here's the man and the woman, you know, in their houses. If my man falls in his own house, as I put down my cards, that makes it a more significant kind of a, you know, that's something to really look at, as you always do. When you have a grand tableau, you look at the cards which fall in their own positions, in their own houses, or versus, very often what I've found is that there's like a, what do you call that? Like a mutuality, where you have the one card falling in the one house and the card that that house belongs to falls in the other one. So they like switched over, you know, in a couple of times. And there's another thing that can happen is that you have a card that falls in some card's house, and then that card falls in another house, and then another one, and another one, and another one, and you can come back to the first one. You know, you get like a 5 or 6 or 7 card loop, like a circle going all over your grand tableau, where that is somehow significant, and you can, you know, use that or interpret that in a way. All basic. How far am I in? 7 minutes. Okay. Just your basic way of how I do Lenormand, with tiny versions of this, and this doesn't really get a lot of use, even though it's a really pretty deck, and I love it very much. It's just too big to use as a, you know, for a grand tableau. So fast forward, if possible, to these cards, okay? So this is the same story, different language. I have a dog card here. These are my printouts of a deck that is known as the Deste Tarot. It is a set of cards that is more complex than a Lenormand, and I do believe it has 58 cards in total, or maybe that is what I ended up with, and it's actually 70 or something like that. That would be really easy to find. These cards are given, they're talked about in a novel that is fairly well known. It is The Witches of Smyrna, where it is talked about as the Deste Tarot. And it is like an amalgam, this deck here. This is actually also my images of the deck that are from the internet, from a particular version of this deck, where this is obviously the moon card and so on. I'm not too confident that it'll actually focus really well, or maybe eventually, you know. I'm still finding out how this works. It is a kind of a amalgam or a crossover, a mix between Lenormand and tarot in a way, because it has a lot of, it is Lenormand, but it has a lot more people cards. So I found that I printed these out, I printed these out, I glued them onto cardboard, etc., etc. And I ended up finding it really confusing to have 16 people cards, plus a host of other elemental cards, and like spirits and crystals and what have you, and horses and so on and so forth. Whereas in tarot, I'm used to that system. For some reason, I find the tarot court cards and so on to be functional, and I can work with those, and that just makes sense to me, with the majors on the one hand and the minors on the other, and your number cards and so on and so forth. So this is like a mix of the two systems without any number cards, so no minors, right? There are elements where this is what they kind of look like. So this is a air element, I suppose. It's the diamond card, and it has three brothers and sisters, the ruby, like so, and the dark stone, which they do call ebony, I think. Doesn't really look like a crystal that much. I'm not sure how it will, how I'm to get my machine to focus properly here. I'm trying to set this up like this again without it sinking, if possible. Let me just leave it like this a bit more. I can also move the spread cloth around a little more. So coming back to this, okay, I made these little cards in order to be able to use them for a grand tableau kind of a situation where what happens, I, of course, because I have a lot more, what the first thing I did is I pulled out those sort of, for me, superfluous court cards, okay? I have two women cards here, this one, and the, where did she go now? There she is. The Earth Woman, because I found her to be, you know, attractive and contemplative, kind of a sort of a mindset that I'm working on to be a part of at the moment. And something else happened here. Okay, back in business. I put my cards back in the wrong position because I remembered the Earth Lady here, and then the broom, and then the Valide card. So that's an important card, and she's actually in her position. So what I did, okay, long story short, what I did is I applied the system of the Lenormand Grand Tableau, where each card has a home. Each card has a house position that it actually sits in. Okay, I determined for myself, first of all, I started off by determining how many of these cards are, these are just the backs, by the way, I will turn them around over in just a minute. How many of these are actually the same as in the Grand Tableau? Okay, so the broom, the moon, the garden, these have Turkish captions, which are rather difficult to read. The mouse, the sailing boat, the door, that's a different one. Okay, the child, the house. Those are all your bog standard Lenormand cards, right? So this one is upside down. I do not want to use reversals in this thing here because I find it just way too complicated. This is an interesting one. It is the Nile. So it is the River Nile, what it says on the bottom there. And it's actually a boat with a couple of people in. It's very unclear. Also, it was never a sharp image. I just have to, you know, be comfortable with using these anyway. But most of them are fairly, you know, it's possible to recognize what they are. The dog, one of my two male court cards, and so significator cards that I used. The fox right next to him, right there. So you can already see that the middle part of this is your basic Grand Tableau, actually as it is, where if I move over slightly, this would be my man and my woman over here. So I have the ring in my woman position card, and she is sitting right next to it. This is one of my two significators, where this is the emotional significator, and that one would be more of the rational version of myself, is how I tend to, you know, look at it and think of it that way. So this may all be really very rambly in the end and impossible to watch. I'm sorry, I'm just trying here. So here's another regular Lenormand card, etc., that goes right there in its own, in this position. I'm turning them over now. The opium card, Poppy, really a different card. So I had to decide, first of all, when I was going to sort of go for my system here, which ones are the same as Lenormand cards, and then see what I had left over, you know, afterwards. And this is the, I think this is the book card, yes, because the letter, which looks slightly similar to me, is over here. So then I had 6 or so cards left over that are similar to Lenormand, but not quite the same. One of those being the poppy right there. And give me another one. The camel is right here, which is different, which I associated with the bear. So I sort of attributed to the house and position of the bear in the Lenormand. Sort of made a judgment call, you know, as that is called. And then I have, at that point, I still have 12 plus cards left over, okay, from my comparison to the Lenormand. I have these, which are horses, 4 horses, each with a stone to them, a crystal. And they stand, if you use the interpretations that are given, I'll put a couple of links in the description to this video down below for you to look up if you want to, where you can find information sheets as to what how these are traditionally used. Okay, the horse cards, the jinn, as I call them, the spirit cards, these ones. The thing is that there is a deck that has been published that looks sort of 80% the same in terms of the images, okay? I believe this image here and some of the horses and quite a few of the Lenormand cards are actually really the same as in this deck as in the sort of official Deste Tarot deck as well, which I don't know if it's out of print. It's possible that you can only get it in certain parts of the world. I'm trying to see if I can get this to focus. How about like this then? I have to hold it right up to the camera and then go down. Does that help at all? It doesn't. Okay, I'll stop doing that now. So it's a deck that I don't know if it's available unless you do this kind of thing, you know. I was just interested to see if I could expand the Grand Tableau to incorporate all the Deste cards that I want to use. So Dervish, yes. Opium, yes. The crystals and the jinn and spirits and the horses and so on, yes. But not too many of those extra men and women that I found to be completely distracting, because also I don't really have a lot of a social life myself. So it was really kind of impossible for me to, you know, to have that many people in a spread, and just I couldn't do with it what I wanted to do with it, which is to have this interesting sort of a Grand Tableau overview of how relationships work out. What am I doing in my life? What are my questions that I'm asking myself today? Those kinds of things, you know? And the funny thing is that I have had a couple of occasions where actually it works rather well to use this. I will have to also look at this spread as it has come out today once more to see whether it makes any sense. Particularly at the moment, it's up to me to decide what I want to do with this. I just felt that it was fun to try what I have done. So to actually finish up telling you how I did this, Grand Tableau in the middle with these 6 at the bottom here. I've also put at the top, I remember now. Okay, no. Sorry, this is your regular Grand Tableau down here. I was confusing myself there for a second. Oops, weird noises. So these 4 positions, I had decided that they would be the positions that belong to my crystals. So like that. If I have a Grand Tableau where there's a house for the rider, the sailing boat, the clover, and so on, then these 4 are the positions for those 4 crystals. The positions on this side are the 4 going down like that, are the positions that go that belong to these, so to the spirits like that. And on the right hand side I have the positions, the houses that belong to my horses like that, in a particular order. So I can show you my scribble that I made in my cartomancy fancy notebook. If you were to want to do this ever in your life, you could actually make a screenshot of this and see where it takes you. Maybe if you have this deck, or if this is something that really intrigues you and you want to work with this, then this is something you could, potentially do. So I placed my man and woman right there, just like in the Grand Tableau. The dervish comes instead of the rider. Then I have a door for the clover because it has a lucky definition. The ship is where the ship is. The home house is where the house is. Then followed by the tree, the cloud, the snake, etc. These are just everything that could be Lenormand is Lenormand in this. The second man position, house position, is underneath the first one. The second woman underneath the first one, and so on. Everything just continues on like that. I have my Jinn spirit cards going down like that, my horses on the other side, crystals in the middle. Actually, I decided to put the 2 goddess cards, Atarte and Valide, on the outside of this row, so here and here, with the 4 element crystals in the middle like that. And I end up having 6 cards at the bottom of the Lenormand tableau and 1 left over, which I call the East Wind card, because that is actually a card in the deck, this one. The East Wind, which is also lucky. So you can do with this whatever you like. It is just my attempt at incorporating this whole deck into a way of working where I can actually use those miniature cards in a way where they sort of all tie in together. And if it's kind of difficult to determine what it means, but then that is what I have to do, right? That the tree was the last card in the deck that I sort of put into this east wind position at the end there. What does that mean to me? Trees are lucky for me. Also, it is May, so it's the good season. Everything's very green right here. And I love my trees. So maybe, as I was realizing yesterday, walking out into my backyard under my trees there, I need to be with my trees a bit more often. And it brings me health and hope to be with my trees. It could be that simple. So that's how I look at this, to see what kind of wisdom I can sort of extract from having the whole deck in one go. And it's not really easy to do. It's possible. That's all I'm trying to say here. So Atarte here, my mother goddess card, I suppose, that I've been reading a lot of, prehistoric goddess analysis lately again, how the original mother goddess has sort of survived in history up to now. It's been very important to me recently to be reading up on that again. And she is, my mountain. How these apply to my spirit positions. Here is a gravestone. It doesn't really look like that, but it is a Turkish gravestone because this is a lot of Turkish material. And the sun underneath it. I personally feel that this invites thought. It's somehow all really significant. I find it attractive and appealing to observe the different connections, the different sort of webs of meaning that happen, the lines, there's stuff going on that somehow makes sense to me if I look at it long enough and if I pay attention and if I, same as always. So I'm trying to also learn to do this. I'm not even, it's not that I'm that good at it. It's I am not good at this. I'm just trying to figure it all out and see if it works. And so it's, yeah, I wouldn't think it impossible to actually, use this and expand the Grand Tableau to incorporate all these cards. It's not impossible, I don't think. But I have to decide myself what each of the positions means, what it means to me, what I can do with it, and it takes time. So, yeah. So if this makes sense to you, I am really happy and pleased. I hope it does. I hope it is at least entertaining to look at. And, I get to mess around with my little cardboardy bits and pieces. I think I will edge these in a color, maybe gold or black. I haven't decided. And it's also just cardboard. But it looks, with a red ochre ink paint on it like that, it really looks, very earthy and very Mediterranean, which is where the paint comes from. So, happy days. Thank you for watching, you people. I think I made it out the other end. Thank you. See you next time. Bye-bye.